you need to force yourself, and I say that in love, you need to force yourself with exposure therapy to understand the realities of this problem, please. Like, if you have a heart, and I believe you do, if you have a heart, then I'm asking you to let your heart bleed for a little while so that it'll beat again for the right things, that it'll reorient your focus and what really matters in life. And it's not just this, but this is one of those things where you've got to let it bleed. You've got to let your heart bleed. And you've got to feel that pain to understand the urgency. Welcome to Better Equipped. I'm Cody Balch, and I'm excited for you to join us in this really, really important, healthy conversation with my friend and brother, Garrett Murphy. Garrett Murphy, welcome back to Better Equipped. You're our first repeat offender on here, so thank you for not being scared off the first time. And we're going to be talking about a really important topic today. Garrett, I know that this topic of human trafficking, we're going to dive way into that and kind of explain all that. But I know this is something really, really near and dear to your heart. And I'm excited. You're going to get to share a lot more of your heart. So Garrett, thank you for being here on this and your heart for that.
Well, it's an honor to be your first repeat interviewee. So
it's take it as a compliment. So when did this stirring in you start? I assume it's not been since birth, but your heart to help rescue people, to help see people experience freedom from human trafficking, kind of where did the beginning of that journey start for you? Was it like a month ago? Was it a year ago? Was it 10 years ago? And I'm sure it's been a journey.
Well, I think I can pinpoint where I felt like that feeling that I hope many of you have or will have, which is, maybe I should do something, or is there something I can do? But I think since I was a young child, I remember, are people going to see this? Shoot. I remember crying when like animals would die, or in the Disney movie, I was I was very empathetic growing up. And I've always been really sensitive to children getting yelled at or screamed at, or, just being mistreated, or what looked like mistreated, or bullying, those different things. I've been very sensitive to that, but I don't know. And I should have thought about this to look back, but I actually went to an exponential church planting conference in Orlando. Mm-hmm. I think it was probably 7 years ago, probably. Okay. And Destiny Rescue had a booth there. And I think they had one of those 30-second clips right before one of the speakers came up. And it was kind of in that moment that it's like, if I've ever felt a connection to some sort of cause or humanitarian effort to do something, it was that right then. And it's been that ever since. And I went to the booth and I talked to a guy named Tom Cochran. He still works for Destiny Rescue. He's my connection with Destiny Rescue, which is a child sex trafficking rescue agency. And so ever since then, I've been, I've given what I could at times, tried to generously when I was able to, and just always thought, what am I supposed to do? I think that's what, as people have seen The Sound of Freedom, which we're going to discuss here shortly, I think that's what people think. Well, what can I do? Right. And so that's the thought that I kind of just had for years. And so I guess about 7 years specifically with human trafficking.
Oh, that's really interesting. I know that as you and I have talked about this and talked with other people about it, this is something that I think there's a low level of awareness, but at a real daily level, this is something that a lot of people seem to it's like knowingly, but not cognizantly, like kind of in the back of their mind there. It's one of those things where it feels, I don't know if this is the right term, but kind of nails on a chalkboard in terms of emotionally. It's like, that makes me feel really sad. That makes me feel really, powerless. It makes me feel really scared. And I think there's a part of that has it can stifle people from really actually having a greater awareness. So I want to work right now to encourage and help people gain more awareness of the problem, that this is something that it does hurt. It is painful, and it's painful for a really good reason, but that's also the exact same reason why we shouldn't turn a blind eye. So Garrett, invite us, as painful as this is, invite us into the realities of this problem today in the world, in the United States. Like, what are we up against? What's really happening as we go about our daily lives and think everything's generally fine, and we deal with first world problems? What's really happening?
Right. Well, let me start with this. This is a hard thing for me to even talk about, because I think one of the biggest issues with like the inaction, like we're not doing, most people are doing nothing about it. They're not aware, or it's not that they're not aware, but they turn a blind eye to it. And I think part of it's because we're just in this culture of having what we want when we want it, and really there's no limit. We just get it, just instant satisfaction all the time. And it's even hard for me to talk about that, because I do like to go out and have fun, play sports,
right.
Buy, whatever it might be. Starbucks is always the common example or whatever. We pay like $8 for a coffee, a couple times a week or whatever, that kind of stuff. But are we willing to give anything up for someone else who's literally living enslaved? And I just think it's so hard, because I feel guilty when I say, hey, everybody needs to do something, make a sacrifice, give this up, do something about this, when I can just look in the mirror and see there's more that I can do. And I feel like I'm in a place in my life of very deep conviction. And it does come from those moments that you're talking about, where we see a clip, whether it's online or whether you saw the movie Sound of Freedom or some other short films or whatever that might be, or the 30-second clip before concert, or the that it's so heinous, it's so disgusting, it's so disturbing, that it's really, really difficult to comprehend without losing sleep, without it rocking just your whole perspective on life in general. That's how it was for me. I think it's that way for many people. Yeah. And it's easier for us to just like, okay, well, I have all this going on. Yeah. And let me just look at that and turn that blind eye. Yeah. And I feel like but part of the problem is also, I don't know what to do. Right. Yeah. And so that's part of the problem. But I can think back to, like, I have a horrible memory, but it's like I have a photographic memory when it comes to these disturbing things that I've seen, whether it was just a child being abused. It's a news story about a child being abused, or a YouTube video or something about this feeling that I have, and that I literally will lose hours of sleep because like, well, what happened? Did that child get the care it needed, or like what kind of trauma has that child experienced that will literally affect him the rest of his life or the rest of her life? And like those things, they're haunting. Yeah. And then I'm haunted with this guilt of I'm doing nothing, knowing that nearly 2 million children are trafficked in sex trafficking in the world right now.
How many again?
Somewhere near 2 million.
Wow, that's crazy.
It's unbelievable.
And I've heard that there's obviously the sex trafficking side of it. We were talking about human trafficking. A lot of that being children, the most vulnerable, whether that's impoverished or not. But those who really, maybe I mean, some of these kids, their parents sold them. As like unbelievable as that sounds, some people, they're being abused by their family, and it's like that's part of it. Some people, there's even like organ harvesting, and in certain places of the world, there's organ harvesting for not just like, oh, that's like they want to donate an organ. It's like no, this is like for ritualistic sacrifices. There's like crazy stuff that I think we like to think doesn't exist. But I know a lot of this is being driven by sex trafficking. And this isn't just overseas. This is something that's right in our backyard in the United States. No matter what state you live in, there are some, hot spots, bigger cities, major thoroughways of trafficking because of roadways, border areas. Like there's a lot of obviously hot spots where that concentrates. Garrett, what do you think is driving this? Because clearly there's a demand. Okay. So the way anything works is there's always sick people out there, but like there's like if people, and I'm going to use something that's not sick. I like ice cream, but like if nobody liked ice cream or craved ice cream, what would happen to the ice cream industry? It's gone.
It's hard to believe, but it would.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, even something that people love, like, but this is something that is so heinous. Where's this demand coming from? And where's the US in terms of its player within that?
Again, just like you're so disturbed and you stay, like it keeps you up at night. Like I can't comprehend it, that demand. Now, what I do know is when sin gets into our life, when we start living in darkness and living in the lusts of our flesh and the lusts of our eyes and the desires of our heart, anything can happen. Right? Like what we want, what we need, that escalates and escalates and escalates. And thanks to technology, everything is out there and available, and that demand has been created. And somebody on the entire other side of the world is supplying what, people in America could consume. And they say that America is the number one consumer of online child exploitation and pornography. So
listen to that, folks. Like, listen to that. The United States is the top consumer of child pornography, and I believe the top consumer of abusing, the sex trafficking demand. Garrett, what do you think? I mean, I've got thoughts on this, but what do you think is the connection? It's not that we're not saying everybody who's ever looked at porn is a child trafficker. That's not, I don't want you to hear that.
Yes.
But what do you feel like is the connection in terms of a lead measure of creating? Do people wake up as a child and be like, when I grow up someday, I want to be a child molester, a child, like a child, look at like, this isn't what happens. How do people get there? And why is it growing? This is something that isn't shrinking in terms of the demand.
Yeah. Well, I just think the availability is there, and this, what we've grown up in for decades now is like, there's so much out there that should never be, first of all, it shouldn't be happening. It shouldn't be produced. It shouldn't be available. It shouldn't be free. It shouldn't be,
right.
We should not have access to the things we have access to.
Right.
And it causes the human brain, it literally can't handle it. And so many of the people that are consuming child pornography were abused themselves as children. They've experienced trauma, many wounds in early developmental stages. I'm not a psychologist. I won't pretend to be or anything like that. But it only makes sense that something happened during these developmental stages that it could really escalate to that point. Right.
Kind of warping and twisting. Yeah.
But it's also, I believe it's just our sinful nature when we play with fire, when we give ourselves over to the darkness. Anything goes, and that is absolutely not an excuse.
Sure.
I wish I could say I get that fundamentally, like that makes sense, but that's not an excuse. Absolutely not. And I truly believe that, but it's insane. The statistics, it's a $99 billion is generated in sex trafficking each year. And it's greater revenues than NBC, CBS, and Fox and all this.
What?
Like that's been the case for probably a decade now. And the demand for child pornography, I think they talked about it maybe it wasn't in the movie, but I've watched several interviews with Tim Ballard and some people from Operation Underground Railroad, the people who produced that movie. And just the demand during the pandemic, or at least during those years, I'm sure there was some correlation there. for abusive child exploitation, sex trafficking. Like it just increased 500%. I thought they said that in the movie. Maybe they didn't, but it's unbelievable. And as far as the lead measures go, I think anybody who plays with this hidden sin is playing with the darkness. They are playing with a fire that will destroy them.
Yeah.
And as a person in their soul, they will have to hide and hide and hide. It's something they could never bring out. And so, and that starts with engaging in online pornography usage. So, it starts, it may start when you're a young child and you're exposed to something you're not supposed to, and you're curious. It could go from anywhere,
but
because of the availability. And it's such a dangerous world out there. Online.
I've heard Tim Ballard again. Tim, as Garrett mentioned, Tim Ballard was one of, not the only, but one of these key players in terms of. He used to be. He did a lot of things kind of within the government and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Garrett, but like there was border patrol stuff when then they created like a special task force for human trafficking, and then he realized his hands were kind of tied there. And all this is really well documented. He's very, very public about this in his story. And, but he's talked about, he's like, I've interviewed and interrogated like hundreds of these predators, these people, these human traffickers. And he says the storyline is often so similar when you start talking with him is, I started looking at porn and it was like a drug where it wasn't enough. The high wasn't enough. I had to do more. I said, I'd never cross this line. Yeah. I said, I'd never cross this line. Then I crossed that line and I will never cross this line. And then, well, what about 16-year-olds? And then and then all of a sudden they're at like 7, 8-year-olds in there. Like, and it's like what they're doing. It's like, they didn't start there. And, it's just like, it's something to take very seriously. And even just the demand of pornography itself, even if it's not child specific pornography, it's still generating this demand in this insatiable kind of craving amongst culture. And so it's very, very concerning. So Garrett, I heard in the news recently that you've set a new kind of goal in God's conviction. It was the news station was a Zoom call. And but would you mind sharing just what God has put on you and your wife's heart to say, hey, I can't fix the whole problem myself, but I want to do my part. And can you share kind of personally what God's called you to?
Yeah, I want to go back to something that you just mentioned. Well, as you're walking through this escalation process from, teens, 16-year-old, is that okay? And then get 7, 8-year-olds, like literally my blood pressure goes up. I can feel my body tensing up in just having conversation about this. Now, I have no idea. The reason I'm saying this, I have no idea how these rescue agencies, whether it's Destiny Rescue or Operation Underground Railroad and or many of the others that are available out there, my heart it breaks for them. It goes out to them for the things that they hear, the things that they're exposed to.
Right.
Because I feel like I'm kind of like, I'm so tense right now, literally having a conversation, thinking about that process, that somebody could get to that point where they see an innocent child, a child of God in that way. And they could take such sinister pleasure from the abuse and exploitation of one of those children. And so my heart goes out to them. So please be praying for those involved in the fight against human trafficking and sex trafficking and exploitation, because I cannot comprehend how they do what they do. And I think the movie did a really good job of talking about of Tim Ballard, or in some of his interviews on, there's no way he could have done it without the Lord getting him through it, because it's so disturbing. But so as far as the news that you heard on the news or whatever,
I can't remember if it was CNN Zoom call or if it was a Fox News call, NBC. It was something big.
The Lord has just like softened my heart, not softened my heart. He has had it on my heart. It has been a burden I've carried for many years about,
right.
Well, you're not doing anything about it, or you're not doing enough about it. Like, it's never enough. There have been times I've sold some property in the past and I gave a large chunk of the proceeds or the profit to the agency. And it just still felt like it's never enough. Right. And, but the Lord's uniquely positioned me in a spot in my life where I feel like the timing, I don't know, it's time to move forward with this conviction and do more, right? And I hope that and pray that he's done that in the hearts of many people and will continue to do that in the hearts of many people, that it's time to do something, or it's time to do more. And after much thought and prayer and a few conversations with Destiny Rescue, I didn't need to have the conversations with them to know what I want to do. And it's a heart for rescue. Now, there's way more to it than just rescue, right? And while I'm a bit of an enthusiast and love an adrenaline rush and a chase and a challenge, I have no law enforcement experience. I have no criminology experience,
criminal justice background.
I don't. I don't have any of that. I don't really want to go hunting for anything, or I know there's some vigilante people setting people up for these sting operations but that's tempting. But I thought, well, then what can I do? And the obvious thing is to rescue people, and in order to rescue people, they need funding. And so I want to rescue 100 people, and I'm not going to stop until I have done that as far as raising the funds. And so Destiny Rescue, the average cost of their rescue when they run these operations, and they have border stations and they're in different countries and they're trying to emerge into, there's other countries right now begging them to come into their country and help with this issue of human trafficking, whether it's that law enforcement's not set up or the social conditions, or I don't know a ton about it, but
specialized skills. Yeah.
And on my call the other day, I said, well, what's the limit? What's the greatest obstacle? And it's always funding. If they have the funding, they can rescue more. If they have the funding, they can go into new countries. They can expand these operations and rescue more people. And so while it feels, in order to rescue 100 people, it's the equivalent of $150,000. And so I'm going to focus on that. That is going to be what I do and who I am for until it's done. And I'm hoping that it opened doors, and the Lord will open my heart to understand like my role and my place with this burden that he's given me, the compassion that he's given me for these victims and the desire to rescue them.
So you're not planning to do this alone, right? You got $1,500 per rescue, $150,000. You're committed to it. I know I've talked to you. You're committed to this, through hell and high water. Like you're willing to champion that and make sure it happens. But I know that, if there's somebody out there like, man, I can't do 100 kids, but I could do one kid, one person. Like, are you, it sounds like you're wanting to invite people to join you in this, right? Like, is that the idea?
Let me share some of my ideas. All right. I'm kind of when I can think outside the box, like I get really excited. And so I don't want to be known as a fundraiser necessarily. Nothing wrong. We need fundraisers. And I essentially would be a fundraiser, like raising the funds for this. But to me, it's all about that child that is locked in a room, and they are at the will of an evil person, that door can open up at any given moment when they're hoping for rescue. They're hoping for food. They're hoping for love or comfort, or they just live in hopelessness. And they know the next time that doors opens that they're going to be abused and required to do things that no human being should ever be required to do. No child should ever have the knowledge of.
Yeah.
Time and time and time and time again.
Yeah.
And it's for that child that I'm going to do this. And there's not a doubt in my mind that these funds will be raised, because I know people, and I don't know how, and I'll be praying for the Lord and the Spirit of God to simply open doors, open hearts, so that we do something. And I currently have ownership in storage facilities. I plan on buying more storage facilities to bring in more money so that I can use those for match funds. I'm actually leaving as soon as this is over. There's literally going to be a hurricane here in Southwest Florida in just a couple hours. I'm going to go put up some shutters for people so that I can, either that money is going to get donated directly, or I'm going to use those funds to match somebody else who's willing to give. Currently, I have some match funds of my own.
All right.
That I don't know who's going to hear this. I don't know when, I don't know where, but I want to challenge somebody who hears this to do something.
Yes.
So I specifically would love to challenge you to give $750. I will match it. If you get $1,500, I will match it as well. Like, let's literally make sure this podcast or this YouTube video or whatever platform you're hearing this on,
right,
Better Equipped with Cody Balch, that we rescue a child. Like, let's do it.
Yes.
Like, let's rescue one child. And that's all it takes, right? And so many of us, if we want to go on a vacation, we find a way. If we need something, we find a way. Like, let's find a way for these kids who can't find a way. And let's do something about it. So I've been praying.
I'd say, let's blow Garrett out of the water with this even expectation. Let's make sure it's more than one. $1,500 rescues one person from human trafficking, from sex trafficking. So let's blow them out of the water. There's people out there listening who are like, I can do one myself. I spend it on more frivolous, self-indulgent things than this. Like, there are people out there who need to put their money in the right places. And Garrett, I'm like inspired by your heart to say, I'm willing to do that. Not just talk about it, not just pray about it, which is super important to pray about it. Like, don't stop praying, but like, I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is. I want to create match funds. I want to educate. I want to let people know, make sure there's awareness that this is a real need. It's urgent. These people, imagine, and this is what I encourage you to do. And I know not everybody out there listening has kids, but if you don't have children yourself, I want you to imagine that it's a close family member, like your closest family member, and that they have just been taken for these purposes, for sex trafficking. And you're not sure if you'll ever see them again. Like, how urgent is that issue to you? This is the way that I believe our hearts collectively need to be burdened to both prevent in the prevention side and also the rescue side and the aftercare side for these. And I know Destiny Rescue does that, and other organizations, they care about all of those. So Garrett, like, if somebody's like, I'm on board, or I want to learn more, or how do I talk to Garrett? Is there an email address that they should contact you? Especially if they want to access those match funds. I know that the money ultimately is going to Destiny Rescue. So maybe give us some of those key pieces of information. I'll make sure they hit the screen after, so that people can see that as well.
Yes. Well, I will just have, I've got a QR code. I've got a website. The funds go directly to Destiny Rescue. They're a not-for-profit 501c3 tax deductible. Sure. Like, I'll have all that. You put that on the screen, you put that in the description and everything.
It's like destinyrescue.org.
You want to talk
for
to
those
me
listening?
Yeah, destinyrescue.org. One word, destinyrescue.org. If you want to check them out, they were founded in 2001. I think they surpassed 1,800 rescues so far this year.
Just this year. Wow.
This year. And
wow.
I want, like, to me, like, that's amazing, but it's also really sad. When there's over 1 million children in child sex trafficking in the world. And this is one of the larger rescue agencies that's out there, and it's 1,800.
Right.
And so I asked him, if you had another $1 million, what would you do? And it would go to this, or we'd be able to set up more border stations. Border stations are a really great place to rescue people. And, but like, it's a matter of needing funds. And the crazy thing is, with all the people that I know, if our hearts were in tune with what was actually happening, and like, as you were talking, I got to thinking about, it was a YouTube video that I saw a few months ago. It was like a 3 or 4 year old, and I guess their father had just died or wasn't coming home. And they told this child, and this child just started begging and pleading, I want to see daddy. I want to see daddy. And I think about these children, these teenagers, they will never see their family again. How do you get through the day knowing not only you will never see your family again, you will never have freedom, you will never experience the joys, the pleasures of this life, and on top of that, you're at the hands of potentially 8 to 10 of the sickest, most perverted men.
Yeah.
That
just
every single day,
demon driven, demon possessed. Yeah.
And it is urgent. Yeah. Cody, thank you. It is an urgent matter. They are in captivity right now.
Yeah.
They are coerced or groomed or whatever. Their family, they're threatened that they'll kill them, they'll kill their siblings, they'll kill their family. There are so many different ways that they manipulate the minds and cause terror and trauma for them to do whatever they want. And these people, they are not products. They are not something that should be sold and can be used and thrown away. These are human beings that do not have the freedoms and the liberties that we have right now. And I believe that we are responsible for their rescue. So be in prayer and give, make sacrifices.
Listen, be in prayer, but in James it says, it's not just like you just pat somebody on the shoulder and say, I hope things get better. Like, you got to do something. And so it's not to negate prayer. Like, God needs to, we need God to do the heavy lifting, but a lot of that heavy lifting is in our hearts. We're handed the resources, and he's telling us to go. And that's for a lot of different things that are needed in this world, but the right things, the heart of God. I think about, how does this connect with the gospel? Because there's social justice driven, like the social gospel driven people. And I know you, Garrett, and I know that this isn't the heart of that. I think about the heart of the gospel is that Jesus loved us so much that he came down into the sinful mess of us and was willing to accept rejection and death on a cross to save the lost sheep, to leave the 99 and to save the one. And this is the heart of like the least of these. Like, how did you care for the least of these, the most vulnerable? True religion that God our Father finds faultless and pure is this, to watch after orphans and widows and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. I mean, talk about an orphan. This is like a flipper. This isn't the parents died. This is the child is separated without his parents or her parents or what, and like, this is at the heart of like God's heartbeat. And again, the urgency. This isn't something fictitious in a movie. But I really, really want to challenge it. I might need your help, Garrett, with remembering there's a documentary from 2018. Tim Ballard did Operation Haiti. I don't know if you can look that up or I just watched it. I'm just blanking on the name. It's an operation in Haiti that they did, more documentary style. And I have homework for anyone listening, either on YouTube or the podcast. I don't care what year you watch this. I need you to do two things in the next week or two. Because I know you probably watch stuff online anyway. So take time to watch The Sound of Freedom, which, depending on when you watch this, is either in theaters or something on demand, or you can rent it. Sound of Freedom. That is not a documentary style. It is actors. I want to circle back to that one in a second. But the second one is this documentary that was done it's really important because you're going to see real life scenarios and real stories and how this works, the storyline. Like you need to force yourself, and I say that in love. You need to force yourself with exposure therapy to understand the realities of this problem, please. Like if you have a heart, and I believe you do, if you have a heart, then I'm asking you to let your heart bleed for a little while so that it'll beat again for the right things, that it'll reorient your focus and what really matters in life. And it's not just this, but this is one of those things where you've got to let it bleed. You've got to let your heart bleed. And you've got to feel that pain to understand the urgency. And so I'm just challenging you to watch that documentary and the movie The Sound of Freedom. Now, Garrett, crazy thing, The Sound of Freedom. So you had told me about it. Honestly, I hadn't heard about it. I'm just being honest. I hadn't heard about it till you mentioned it to me. This was, I don't know, maybe a month ago. And which is sad, right? So, but I come to find out that movie had been suppressed for 5 years in the Hollywood scene. Mm-hmm. Why? Like, do you have any not good reason, but why the heck was it suppressed for 5 years? Like, what this something so urgent? I don't see it in the news. I don't see these things in the news. If this problem is so big, why am I not hearing more about this? Why is this movie not getting the same press as other things? What's going on?
I think it's a great question. And I think the media is still trying to send people down. It's sending people down rabbit holes of the why behind all this. But I mean, I feel like that's pretty obvious, right? Like, there are some very, very wealthy people, corporations like that, like behind them is evil. And, and this is such an evil thing that, as most of you have probably heard, when it hit the box offices, when it hit the theaters, it was selling out and selling out and selling out. And they had the whole pay it forward campaign where people were paying for each other's tickets. I personally did. I went for free. I hadn't watched a trailer, didn't know anything about it other than my wife was like, we need to go watch this. And I was like, okay. I always like to be surprised. I don't like to watch trailers. So, but I knew this was going to be heavy. It was going to be really difficult for me to watch, and it would be difficult for her. And we went, and then I paid it forward at the end. But anyway, the way that they did that, just selling out, and it stayed in theaters. It's still in the theater here. They told me over a month ago. They're like, "Oh, it won't be here next week." It's still in the theaters here.
Wow. Okay.
Where I live, and I think it's waking people up. Now everybody knows at least one rescue organization. They know that there are more people enslaved right now than there have been at any point in history. Far more
crazy?
than there have been.
Slavery's alive and well. It's just sort of different, or at least more specific to these types. Yeah, it's crazy.
Right. And I just I don't know. It blows my mind that it was suppressed. It makes me angry. It frustrates me beyond end. It makes me want to find out who and make them answer for it. Or like, I'm not huge on boycotting things, but man, it sure makes me want to boycott things. And so I'm not gonna go into who and what may have happened, but it's very sad. But what I am grateful for is maybe that it was God's will. Somehow it was God's timing. Not that he put that evil thought to suppress this movie onto somebody, but it can be used for God's glory right now. Yeah. It can be used to open eyes and open hearts, to let people bleed. And I pray, I say pray and give, but what I really want to say is take action right now and give, and then continually pray that the Lord opens more hearts to give, because most of us don't have a criminology degree and law enforcement experience, and we can't go overseas, leave our families and rescue the way that I believe Tim Ballard and everyone else associated with that movie, how heroic all these rescue agents are for all of these places. But what we can do is we could make daily sacrifices and give generously, give sacrificially, because somebody is living without any liberties whatsoever in the worst conditions by people that hate them, that they look at them as a product. They're living in that way. And so you can see my name at the bottom of this. It says Hope for 100. That's what I named this little initial. I hope this is just an initial campaign. I want to give hope and life and freedom. Not just in their rescue, not just in their freedom, but Destiny Rescue, their aftercare program, they're a faith-based organization, and they spread the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ as a part of that. But they have over 2,000 people in their aftercare program right now, offering counseling and therapy and teaching them trades so that they won't be tempted or vulnerable to go get back into or be trapped back into human trafficking or sex trafficking. And so be praying for these agencies. Take action right now. If you want to get in contact with me, I am hoping to have some sort of team soon. That it feels like $150,000 is nothing. Let's keep going. Like that's what I would love. That's what I'm praying for is for the Lord to be building up teams and people who are saying enough's enough. Yeah. And they're using those broken hearts, those burdens that the Lord has set upon them to go out and ask people to give from their abundance. We're so blessed. We have so much abundance. Let's give to those who are in need, those who are in the worst of the worst situations on this earth. And because there are people out there that he's given the heart to rescue. There are people out there he's given the heart to heal and mend these people. And so, again, I think your advice to go out, like Destiny Rescue has a page of videos and trailers because they've done some documentaries and rescues and some different things. Check them out. Like, let yourself bleed. I love that. And it's tough. Yeah. I'll be praying for all of your viewers who are letting that happen because it's a difficult thing.
Here's what I'm going to do, Garrett. Here's what I'm going to do. Instead of just ending the normal way in my videos, we're going to land on just a page with info, ways you can give, the QR code, website links, titles of those movies and stuff. I just want to sit there and even as it sits there, like I want you to pray. If you're listening right now, if you're driving in your car, if you're watching on your couch or in bed or somewhere else, I want you to take time to pray. And then I want you to act. And again, like $0 goes to me or Garrett or anybody. Like it's this 100%. So I just want you to pray about this. And I'm not going to pray right now in this moment, like with you here, but I want you to pray. And I want you listeners to pray over this and ask God, help my heart to bleed for what makes yours bleed. And to act and to do what you would want me to do, and to use my time, talent, treasure, influence for the things of this. So don't just listen, like share this conversation, share this need, talk about it with your friends and your family, and pray about it together as a family. Like this is something that is so close to the heartbeat of Jesus. And so, Garrett, thank you so much for helping lead the way for people like myself and others on such an urgent and important topic that is just something that we need to face the music on. So, Garrett, thank you so much for your time, and I'm sure that this is going to make an impact for eternity in people's lives. Thank you, Garrett.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and thank you for hearing me when I told you to go watch the movie, and look what's happened. Now we're talking about it, and your viewers are going to see this. And I do want to say, I assume you're going to publish this in the next day or two. So for the month of September 2023, contact me if you want me to match your funds. Let's rescue at least one. If you can rescue 2, 3, 4,
blow them out of the water.
Whatever you can do, let's do it. But Cody, make sure you just contact Cody. He'll give you, or contact me.
I'll put you in contact. Just let me know. BetterEquippedWithCody@gmail.com. I'll put you in contact.
Let's rescue. And I would love to find a way. I want to sacrificially give in order to be able to match your funds so that we can rescue more people out of this horrendous exploitation. So
thank you, Cody. May it be done.
I'll be praying for all of you.
All right, everybody, act now and pray right now. Here we go.